Hey everybody, welcome to Prescription of Exercise for Health for Sports Exercise with Mr. Patel. We're going to spend a bit of time today talking about the components of this topic. So let's start with an inquiry question here. I want you to take a moment to look at these two questions and read through them. Uh, uh, and once you read through them, pause the video and talk with your shoulder partner or somebody at home or somebody across the classroom, doesn't matter, but have a conversation, a brief conversation about these two questions. What are the strategies you'd recommend, and who has the authority to make those recommendations a policy? So, in talking about policies and who gets to make those decisions, there's some organizations around the world. There's a lot of variety of national organizations, actually, including the World Health Organization, that's cleverly known as the WHO. And the WHO provides guidelines for three really specific age groups. They talk to, they don't talk to, but they create guidelines for 5 to 17-year-olds, 18 to 64-year-olds, and then 64 and above. And these are simply guidelines for exercise recommendations. So let's look at each of these very quickly. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the specifics. Now, think about 5 to 17-year-olds. They're really not developmentally ready yet. So you can see here, we're looking at 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise. And we want that daily to really do some great health benefits. And it should be aerobic. We're not really looking for lots of muscle mass building, but aerobic activity, which is pretty vigorous. And they need to be doing that at least 3 times per week, which is, when we think about the technology world that we live in, we don't really do that with students very often. So if we look at our next group of individuals, we're looking at our 18 to 64-year-olds. This is where our body is really developing, and we're trying to maintain over a long period of time. We're getting into the workforce, we're using more hours, we're eating less food or more food, and this is where the majority of our ailments come in. So as far as recommendations, we're looking at 150 minutes, which is a significant difference from the 60 minutes we saw earlier. So 150 minutes of moderate, intense aerobic physical activity and 75 minutes of some vigorous activity. And they say to do those in spurts of about 10-minute duration periods. In addition to that, 300 minutes or of some kind of intense, moderate to intense activity, or you could kind of compound that and do 150 minutes. So there's some options here. Definitely, we should be developing muscle strength. So that's when you see, high school students and college students really bulking up and getting a lot more tone. So our last group of individuals is our 65-year-olds and above. And our bodies are starting to slow down, and so we still want to do 150 minutes to 300 minutes of moderate activity. But then we kind of pare down a little bit. We're not really doing not doing it 3 times a week. Now we're probably doing it once a week, and we have to be careful about the patient's mobility. They're not able to maintain the balance as well. They probably have a lot more ailments. They're on medications. So instead of doing specific activities, they do what we call broad muscle strengthening activities that are looking at groups of muscles rather than specific muscles. For example, instead of just working out the bicep, I'm going to work out the bicep and the chest combined. So one thing we want to really talk about is the WHO organization creates those physical activity guidelines, and they're designed to lower the risk of what we know as hypokinetic disease. Hypo means low, kinetic means movement. But exercise is really important as a therapy for disease, not just for your body to do well, but it's a therapeutic thing. So we have these key aims of therapeutic exercise in people who have hypokinetic disease. Um, these aims allow them to make the most of their functional capacities. They also allow to alleviate or provide some kind of relief from symptoms that they may be having from a disease. We want to reduce the need for medication and also reduce risk of disease recurrence, or it's known as secondary prevention. And then we want to also help overcome any kind of social or psychological distress that they might have. So those are our specific aims that are utilized for exercise. And we always tell everybody, yes, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, and they're constantly trying to like win the battle. But there's a caveat to always encouraging people to do exercise. You have to be careful because when you encourage people to become more active, there are some barriers to physical activity that might occur, and this could include any kind of risk or accident or injury during exercise. So here's a list of some barriers. The first one is uncontrolled disease state. So people who have angina, which is a heart condition, or perhaps they have uncontrolled diabetes because they're not very good at taking their medication or their insulin. Perhaps they have hypertension because they have a really high sodium diet or constantly stressed, and those might get triggered. We also have hazards of exercise. If you're a cyclist or a swimmer, there are some you could drown, you could fall off your bike. Those are just general hazards that can happen. Musculoskeletal injury would be injuries to your bones and your muscles, like sprains and such. And then we have triggers. Triggers are those silent attacks. For example, the secondary heart attack, or you might have some kind of infection that, maybe you have a cyst or something inside your body and it ruptures, or you've opened yourself to infection. So these are all barriers that we want to think about. You know, um, Although there are a variety of benefits to physical activity, it's really important to acknowledge and be aware of potential hazards, right? So here we have Mark Vivian Foe, and Mark Vivian Foe was a 28-year-old Cameroon football player, like a soccer player, and he died in 2003. He actually died on the football field during a game, and it's because he had excessive exercise. He was overtraining, and that actually triggered a heart attack. And these are rare. They happen probably one in every 200,000 people, but it can happen to anyone at any time. And it's not just heart, it can be a number of other things. The same thing could be said for a 34-year-old Japanese football player. His name is Naoki Matsuda. He died in 2011. He actually died 2 days. Let's see. I think he died on August the 2nd. That's right. He died August the 2nd. Um, and that's when he collapsed a couple days before during training. Again, really overly fit, overworking his heart, um, and caused him to go down. And then we get into our own community at Hillsborough High School. Lavanzel Taylor, um, he died March 3rd of this year, 2015. He was 15 years old, and he was playing a game in Atlanta, playing some basketball for a travel team, and he had some respiratory issues, and it triggered his respiratory issues as he was playing. He just pushed a little too hard and collapsed and died on the court. So we have to be, runners are another group of individuals that we have to think about, and all this comes from something known as hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So I want you to take the closing remarks here. I want you to do a little research, and I want you to find out a little bit more about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and think about what steps we might reasonably take to reduce the risk of heart attack for somebody who has this condition. That concludes this tutorial on the prescription of exercise for health. Thanks very much.